as a person that's received some of your services, right, I can speak to that, but you have a very different approach when you work with clients, right? I think that nutrition of what I was fearful of was very shame-based, of like, don't eat this, don't do that, you better do this. And that is not you whatsoever. I guess, why and where did that come from for you? And like, what is it like to work with you, do you think, for a lot of clients?
Why? Oh, thank you.
I mean, I can answer some of it, but I'm just curious. It is very different, right? It's very different. I don't know if you're aware of that, but it really is. And it's really unique, but it's also really safe.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback in working with my clients, and that's part of the reason why I've like really enjoyed that work. It's the clients themselves, but I just feel like you really do have to take a unique, like everybody's different. And so this is, and the reason why I'm really protective of this is, working in the content space and online and just seeing it's like, well, if you care about the environment and you're not vegan, then you're doing it wrong. Or if you want to diet or you want to lose weight and you're eating this, you're doing it wrong. And I just like don't believe that to be true. And I always knew that, especially with the point around being vegan and caring about the environment. I was like, well, you can't just prescribe this like one thing that works for you is not going to work for everybody. Like
Sure.
food is very cultural, emotional.
Absolutely.
It touches so many different areas of our lives. We don't just eat to sustain, we eat for pleasure, we eat for connection, we eat for community. And so, you really have to think about all of these different aspects of people's relationships to food and how they
Sure.
feed themselves when working with them as a nutritionist. And so that's why I really take that sort of like catered one-off approach. I do think everyone, I don't want to be like, I don't want to say like everyone can be successful, but I do think everyone can find ways to feel better and make changes in their life that will have a positive impact. And that's something I really care a lot about. And
Yeah.
I've been able to witness firsthand with myself. And we've always wanted to find ways to help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, makes sense. So I know we've worked together, but like, what would you describe? People have like this kind of hour session or 45 minute, and then there's kind of like 3 or 4 sessions after. What do you, I guess there's a few questions, of course, I have in there. Like, what are some themes you've noticed in clients, but also what's your approach when you work with them through these kind of themes, their struggles and what they're kind of going through, and how you kind of shape your work with them, and what you try to kind of make sure that they take away, like what's the big goal in there, right?
Yeah. Oh, my big takeaway and my hope for people is like that they can take away and know that they didn't necessarily come to nutritionists to learn the nutrition basics, but that's what people have to learn. That's what they really kind of
Yeah.
have. I really hope they take away from the experience is
Sure.
understanding the different types of fat, different types of carbohydrates, protein, just thinking about the macronutrients, macro level nutrition. There's a lot of micro stuff that gets a lot of news and dominates news story, like, oh, like vitamin C, this, if you just take this lipospheric vitamin C, it'll improve your cold. But it's like, what does that mean in terms of your day-to-day life? Like kind of nothing. And so is it really working with people, or this week we're going to talk about protein, how based on your lifestyle, because it's like, yes, the government, the recommended daily allowance for protein isn't what's optimal. It's just the minimum, but what their RDA is the minimum to eat, to feed, to like be
Sure.
healthy. But that's not necessarily like, that number can change dramatically
Sure.
based on how active you are or what your
Sure.
goals are and what you want to do. And so every week is kind of like a focus on a different macronutrient and helping people understand what of their favorite foods kind of fall in there, how to incorporate them, how to experiment, how to be more curious. And it's intended to not be overwhelming, but hopefully by the end of a 4-week program, you're like, oh, I understand the basics. I'm cooking and changing these things in this way. Even like tracking your food, I don't think is something that people should do
Yeah.
indefinitely, but I think it's an exercise in learning and understanding how your meals come together when you eat out, what kind of, how like a traditional like Thai meal or going to a Chinese meal, how that might look from a food
Sure.
composition perspective, I think is insightful and can inform uh, future decisions
Sure.
without being something that's like shameful.
Sure.
I really do think people are able to, with a macro style program and with this type of approach, are able to have the freedom and flexibility to still eat and enjoy their favorite foods while learning and being
Sure.
able to navigate how they are able to take that data and then be like, oh, this is when I did this, I felt this way, and I can see that based on this, rather than it being like, I ate clean. And when I eat clean, I feel good. But like that's opaque and that's not
Sure. Yeah.
specific. And
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's what I was fearful that it'd be like, right? Boiled chicken, white rice, and broccoli steamed, right? Like no flavor. And that, sure, you'll probably get more fit, all these things, but like there's no fun in that. There's no joy and there's no connection, right? And I remember, I think we were working together and I had gone somewhere that probably wasn't the healthiest. And you were like, okay, sounds like you have fun. And I was like, aren't you supposed to be mad at me? Right? Like, aren't I supposed to be in trouble here? Like I'm in
yeah,
school. And you're like, no. It sounds like for the choices that were presented to you, you made the best choices. And also you had fun. And that was like the most important thing in that. And I don't think many people approach, at least in my understanding and my experience, they approach nutrition and health in that same kind of way. And I feel like your approach is also a little different. It's like protein, carbs, fat, and there's like fermented and there's something else. I'm trying to remember. Like you had a very greens.
yeah, like my food philosophy. So when I'm like
Yeah,
building
that's the
meals,
term, food philosophy.
is what's present is I look for, and this is for like optimal fullness, mental health, uh,
Sure.
heart health. If you're trying to like build a meal that's going to be optimal for fullness, heart health, gut health, all of these different things, I always look for a meal that has protein, a meal that has monounsaturated fat and fiber. With greens, you can't even, I'll even count it as herbs or some herbs or greens, just to like, that's going to be flavor. That's going to be, because sometimes the fiber can be the green.
Sure.
And if you want to still check off this fourth bucket, I always say like herbs or greens. But then the fifth one is something like a probiotic, some sort of fermented food. And if you incorporate those five things into every meal, your 3 square meals a day, and obviously your snacks don't have to look
Sure.
like that too. But it's just like and a good example might be, if to bring this to life, is if you
Sure.
are making breakfast, you could grab a Greek yogurt, a non-fat Greek yogurt, which is protein. Then you could add in some pistachios or walnuts, which will be monounsaturated fat. Then you could add in some blueberries or raspberries or some type of berry that you enjoy
Sure.
for your fiber. You want to add some green in there. You could even add in like mint, and then the yogurt itself is something that is fermented. So in that meal, you're going to
Oh,
get something that like you could in theory make that in 30 seconds. That is
yep.
really quick and easy to make. And you'll probably feel very full.
Sure.
It's going to have all of these different things. And if you build your meals from that way, you're like, oh, like that isn't actually that hard.
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had never really, I mean, I kind of had an idea what fermented was, but I didn't understand the focus on it until kind of working together and the difference with that. You don't hear that a lot.